The jungle was burning. Smoke curled up between the black trees, thick and bitter, choking the sky until even the stars were hidden. The air was heavy with the stench of scorched earth and blood, and every sound carried the weight of death. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared, and mechanical footsteps thundered as enemy hunters searched for survivors. She lay half-buried under twisted branches, her armor broken, her skin cut and bleeding, her breathing shallow. The alien soldier had been part of a proud unit, strong and disciplined, but that meant nothing now. They had walked into an ambush, and in the space of a heartbeat, the enemy tore them apart. She had seen her friends fall one by one, their screams swallowed by the clash of fire and metal. Now only silence remained, broken by the hiss of her own breath and the faint hum of enemy scanners sweeping closer. She was wounded, alone, and certain her final hour had come. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, she let her eyes close. Maybe it would be easier to let go, to accept death here in the ruins of the forest. Her body begged for rest. But then, a sharp crack cut through the night gunfire, heavy and precise. It's not the cold whine of enemy weapons, but something different, something raw and thunderous. Her heart leaped, confused. No one was supposed to be out here. No one from her side had survived. The gunfire grew louder, closer, each shot deliberate, each blast shattering the quiet like lightning splitting the sky. She forced herself to move, dragging her body against the ground. Pushing through the pain to see, through the smoke, a figure appeared. At first, she thought it was another enemy, a shadow rising from the flames. But then she saw the way he moved. With the mechanical precision of a machine, nor the cold grace of her hunters, he moved like a storm, fast and relentless, weapon in hand, cutting through the enemy with brutal force. A human. She froze, stunned. It was impossible. Humans were not part of this war. They had no stake in this fight, no reason to be on this cursed battlefield. Yet here he was, standing against the hunters like a ghost pulled from a soldier's tale. The enemy machines turned their scanners on him, their eyes glowing red through the smoke. They closed in, metal claws scraping the ground, weapons humming with deadly energy. But the human didn't back away. He charged forward, his rifle barking with each squeeze of the trigger. Explosions lighting up the jungle as machines collapsed under his fire. One tried to leap from the trees, but he rolled, swung his weapon up, and shattered it midair with a burst of bullets. Another came from behind, and the human spun, driving a blade into its core with savage precision. He fought like no one she had ever seen, wild, unbreakable, almost reckless, yet every move sharp with purpose. Her chest tightened as she watched. This was no ordinary soldier. This was someone who refused to fall, even when the world was collapsing around him. He fought, until the jungle grew quiet again, until the smoke cleared enough for her to see the field littered with broken machines. Only then did the human lower his weapon. He stood still for a long moment, his chest heaving, his silhouette outlined by the faint glow of burning trees. Then, slowly, he turned, and his eyes found her. For a heartbeat, she wanted to look away. She was a soldier of another kind, another race. They were not supposed to meet like this, not supposed to share a battlefield. But she was too weak to move, too broken to hide. The human approached, his steps cautious but steady. When he reached her, he knelt, and his voice cut through the ringing in her ears low. Steady and strangely calm. "You're not dead yet," he said. She blinked, confused by the words. He should have left her. He should have turned and walked away. Instead, he reached for her arm, pulling her gently from the wreckage. Pain shot through her body, but there was strength in his grip, strength that told her she wasn't going to be left behind. For the first time since the ambush, she felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. But the jungle was not silent for long. The distant thrum of engines returned, louder now, closing in. Reinforcements. The human looked up, his face set in grim determination. Didn't speak again, but she understood in that moment. He wasn't going to leave her here. Whoever he was, whatever he was doing in this war, he had made a choice the second he saw her. He would stand beside her, no matter what came from the shadows. and as the darkness around them stirred once more, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't going to die alone after all. The night pressed heavy around them, filled with the low hum of engines drawing closer. The alien soldier's wounds burned, every movement sending sharp pain through her body. But the human's grip steadied her. His hand was rough, his voice quiet yet strong, carrying a weight that made her listen even through the ringing in her ears. He leaned close as he pulled her up, speaking only a few words, but words that cut deeper than the pain. "You're not dying here, not while I'm breathing." She stared at him, unsure if she had heard him right. No one had spoken to her like that since before the war. Soldiers in her army didn't make vows. They followed orders, fought battles, and accepted death when it came. But this man, this human, spoke as if her life mattered, as if he had already decided she was worth saving. It made no sense. And yet, it gave her the strength to stand. Leaning against him, as the jungle shook with the sound of machines closing in, through the smoke and ash, glowing red eyes appeared again, more hunters. They moved with mechanical certainty, their metal, feet cracking branches as they spread through the forest. The human's hand tightened around his rifle. He pulled her behind a fallen tree, guiding her down gently as if her wounds mattered more than his own safety. He crouched low, weapon steady, eyes never leaving the enemy's shapes in the darkness. "Stay down," he whispered. The enemy fanned out, their scanners sweeping in long beams of light. She knew what came next, the kill sweep. Once they locked onto a target, nothing escaped. Her people had learned that lesson in blood, but the human didn't wait for them to strike. He moved like a shadow, slipping through the burned trees with impossible speed. His rifle thundered again, the sound shattering the night as sparks flew from the hunter's armor. One after another, they fell, but more kept coming. She pressed her hand to her side, trying to stop the bleeding, trying not to close her eyes. Every part of her wanted to rest, but she forced herself to watch. She had to know who this man was, this lone human who had appeared in the middle of her war, who fought like a storm and stood between her and death. He wasn't just a soldier, he was something else, something her commanders had never warned her about. The last hunter charged, larger than the others, its body bristling with weapons. It leapt through the fire, claws reaching for the human. She tried to cry out, but her voice caught in her throat. The machine slammed into him, and for a heartbeat, she thought he was finished. But then she saw the flash of steel in his hand. The human drove his blade deep into the machine's chest, twisting hard until sparks burst from its core. With a final heave, he threw the broken metal to the ground, standing tall as silence fell once more. He was breathing hard, blood running down his arm from a cut she hadn't seen before, but his eyes were steady. He came back to her, crouched beside her, and looked at her wounds. She expected him to hesitate, to wonder what she was, to question why he should bother. But he didn't. He pulled a small pack from his belt, tore it open, and began to patch her wounds with practiced hands. His touch was rough, but careful, as if he had done this many times before. "Why?" she whispered, her voice barely stronger than the crackle of burning wood. "Why help me?" For the first time, he met her eyes fully. There was no fear there, no suspicion, only determination. "Because you're alive," he said simply, "and I don't leave people behind." She didn't know what to say. In her world, life and death were numbers, statistics on a commander's screen. Soldiers were pieces on a board moved and sacrificed without thought. But this human, this stranger, saw her as something more. That vow, spoken in a quiet voice in the middle of a battlefield, struck deeper than any weapon. He helped her sit up, checking the edges of the forest with sharp, watchful eyes. "We can't stay here. They'll be back." She tried to rise, on her own, but her legs trembled, her strength gone. He caught her before she fell, pulling her arm across his shoulder. His body carried the weight without complaint, his steps steady as he led her away from the ruined battlefield. Each step sent waves of pain through her, but his presence beside her forced her to keep moving. The jungle stretched before them, dark and endless, filled with dangers she could barely imagine facing in her state. Yet with every step, she felt a strange calm settle over her. She was broken, but she wasn't alone. She was hunted, but she wasn't abandoned. And though she didn't know his name, didn't know why he was here, or what had brought him into this war, she knew one thing with certainty. This human had made a vow not to let her die, not to let her be another forgotten body on a burning battlefield. For the first time since the ambush, she believed that vow. The jungle was alive with whispers of death. Every broken twig, every distant crack echoed like a warning. The alien soldier leaned against the human as he guided her deeper into the dense shadows, his arms steady around her, even as her strength faded. She could feel her wounds pulling at her, bleeding slowly, yet she also felt his determination pressing forward like a shield. He moved with a soldier's instinct, pausing to listen, eyes always scanning. He wasn't running blindly, he was leading them through the dark with purpose, as if he had walked battlefields like this his whole life. Behind them, the hunters rose again. The machines never gave up, they never stopped. Even shattered, even burned, some of them crawled back to their feet, their red eyes glowing like embers in the smoke. Their heavy steps shook the ground as they spread out, tracking the two survivors with relentless precision. The sound of their scanners hummed through the air, sweeping between trees. The hunt had begun. She wanted to warn him, to tell him what these machines were capable of, but every word caught in her throat. Her chest burned, and blood stuck in her mouth. Yet he seemed to already know. He stopped suddenly, crouched low, and pressed her gently against the trunk of a massive tree. His hand rested on her shoulder for only a moment, steadying her. Then he slipped forward into the shadows without a word. Her heart raced. For a moment, fear clawed at her fear that he would vanish, leave her, abandon her the way so many others had, but then she saw him again, moving with ghost-like speed, his rifle braced against his shoulder. He wasn't running, he was hunting. The first machine appeared, stalking through the smoke with its sensors sweeping. It scanned side to side, searching for her, closing in. She pressed herself against the tree, praying it wouldn't find her. Then the silence cracked. The human's rifle fired once, the shot precise and merciless. The machine collapsed before it even realized it was under attack. He didn't stop. He moved again, shifting to another position before the other hunters could react. She had never seen a soldier fight like this, where people fought in ranks, with orders, with patterns drilled into them by commanders. But this human, he fought like he was part of the jungle itself. Every movement was instinct. Every shot was meant to kill. He didn't just survive the hunt, he turned it back on them. Yet no matter how deadly he was, more machines kept coming. Their heavy frames pushed through the trees, their weapons glowing faint red as they powered up. The jungle itself seemed to tremble as the hunt closed in. She tried to rise, tried to steady herself against the tree, but her body betrayed her. Pain surged, and her vision blurred. She hated it, hated being weak, hated being a burden, while he fought alone. But before despair could consume her, he was there again, kneeling beside her. His hand was on her arm, his voice low but unshakable. "They're tightening the net. We have to move." She shook her head. "You can't carry me, not through all of them. You'll die." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment she thought he might argue. But he didn't. He simply adjusted the strap of his rifle, slung it over his back, and without hesitation pulled her up into his arms. She gasped, shocked by the sudden strength, but he ignored her protests. "Then I'll carry you. I told you I don't leave people behind." The words struck her harder than the pain. Carried in his arms, she felt the steady power of his steps as he forced his way through the jungle. Every shadow was a threat, every sound a warning, yet he never slowed. His breath came heavy, his wounds stained his shirt, but his will did not bend. The hunters followed, their red eyes cutting through the dark, their voices cold, mechanical, echoed through the trees as they coordinated their pursuit. They did not tire. They did not bleed. They would keep coming until they had her, until they had both of them. But something burned in the human that the machines could not understand. She saw it in his eyes each time he turned, each time he set her down to fire another volley. Each time he fought them back with nothing but grit and fury. The machines hunted because they were programmed to. He fought because he refused to surrender, for the first time in what felt like forever. She felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The jungle stretched endlessly before them, lit by the glow of burning wrecks left in his wake. Though she knew the hunt would not stop, though she knew more enemies were closing in from every direction, she clung to one truth that gave her strength to endure. She was not alone, not anymore. The jungle finally broke open into a clearing of twisted metal and shattered stone. Smoke rose in black columns from what had once been a forward outpost, now nothing but ruins scorched by war. The ground was littered with wreckage-burned vehicles, broken weapons, and the bodies of those who had fallen hours before. The air was thick with the bitter smell of fire and death. The human stopped at the edge, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion, but his grip on her never wavered. He looked over the destruction, and his jaw tightened. She stirred weakly in his arms, her voice little more than a whisper. This place, it was ours. His eyes moved across the wreckage with the focus of a soldier who had seen too many battlefields. Not anymore, but maybe we can use it. Machines were closing in. She could hear their heavy steps behind them, the sound of branches breaking, their mechanical voices calculating. They were not rushing now. They knew their prey was cornered. The human carried her into the heart of the ruins, lowering her carefully. Behind the shell of a half-buried transport vehicle, for the first time since the ambush, he allowed himself to stop moving. He crouched low, scanning the battlefield, searching for something he could use. His hands moved with speed, collecting. Scattered weapons, pieces of ammunition, power, packs, anything salvageable. Most of it was useless, burned out or broken, but he didn't stop. He refused to stop. She watched him through blurred vision, her heart heavy with guilt. Every movement of his body was sharp, driven, but she could see the toll of carrying her. Through the jungle, his shirt was soaked with blood, some of it hers, some of it his own. His arms trembled slightly each time he lifted a weapon. And yet he did not slow. He moved like a man who knew he was running out of time, but also like a man who had already decided he would not go down quietly. The machines emerged from the trees one by one, their red eyes glowing brighter in the smoke. 10, 15. More. They spread across the ruins in a line, weapons raised, closing in step by step. Their voices hissed in unison, metallic and hollow. Target located, resistance identified, elimination protocol engaged. She reached out for him, her voice breaking. You can't fight them all. Not like this. Leave me. You'll have a chance if you... He froze, turned toward her, and for the first time she saw real fire in his eyes. Not just anger, but something deeper, something unshakable. I told you before. Yeah, I don't leave people behind. Not you. Not. Anyone? The machines advanced. Their weapons began to glow, charging with lethal energy. The ruins lit up under their red light. There was no way out, no cover left. He knew it. She knew it.
Ow.
The machines knew it. And still, he rose to his feet. He braced himself against the burned-out wall of the transport and lifted a heavy plasma rifle he had scavenged. The weapon hummed weakly, its power core flickering, but in his hands it became something more. He slammed a spare pack into it, forced it alive, and aimed straight at the advancing line. The first shot ripped through the night like thunder. 1. Machine dropped instantly, its chest exploding in sparks. The second shot crippled another, sending it crashing into the dirt. But the recoil shook his body and she saw him stagger, fighting to stay upright. He gritted his teeth and kept firing, each shot precise, each shot a defiance. The machines answered back. Energy blasts rained down across the ruins, smashing into the wreckage, throwing sparks and fire into the air. One shot tore apart the wall he hid behind, another scorched the ground near her. She cried out as the air burned, her body trembling. With fear, yet when she looked at him, she saw no fear at all. He fought as if fear had no place in him. The machines closed in, step by step, relentless, endless. He shouted over the chaos, his voice raw but steady. When I say run, you run. Don't look back. You understand? Her breath caught in her throat. Run. She could barely stand. And yet deep down, she knew he meant it. He would throw himself into fire if it gave her even a chance. The machines raised their weapons in unison for a final strike. Their red glow burned brighter, filling the ruins with light like a rising sun of death. She thought it was the end. She thought nothing could stop what was coming. Then she saw it, the human's eyes narrowing. His body braced like steel, his finger tightening on the trigger, not with fear, not with despair, but with defiance. The blast wave hit. Fire tore across the ruins, and in that blinding storm, he stood unbroken. The fire raged, the machines pressed forward, and yet something inside her whispered a truth stronger than death. She would not die alone, because he was still standing, still fighting, still refusing to let go. The ruins shook under the storm of enemy fire. Dust fell from the shattered walls as the machines closed their circle, their voices cold and metallic, echoing through the smoke. Elimination in progress. Targets surrounded, their red eyes burned through the haze like marks of doom. The human's rifle spat fire until the barrel glowed. Each shot he fired dropped one of the machines, sparks bursting from their armor. But there were too many. The weapon finally gave out, a hiss of dying power escaping from its core. He cursed under his breath, tossed it aside, and grabbed another. From the wreckage, a smaller, weaker pistol, but he made it deadly in his hands. His arms trembled with exhaustion, but his eyes never wavered. She lay against the wall, watching him fight as the machines advanced step by step. Her heart beat painfully in her chest. He was bleeding, his shirt torn and soaked, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. Every movement looked slower now, heavier, but he didn't stop. Not once. He kept standing between her and death, as if his body alone could hold back the entire army. One of the machines broke through the smoke, rushing in with bladed arms extended. He spun, grabbed a shard of metal from the ground, and drove it straight through the creature's glowing eye. Sparks exploded as the machine collapsed at his feet. He pulled the blade free, chest heaving, and turned to face the next. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why won't you leave me? You don't even know me." He looked back at her for a single heartbeat, and in his eyes, she saw the answer. No words, just the fire of someone who refused to give up on another life. That look told her everything. He wasn't fighting because of duty, or because of orders, or even because of anger. He was fighting because he had decided that she mattered. The machines surged forward together. Beams of red light slashed across the ruins. He dove, dragging her further behind cover, shielding her with his own body as explosions ripped through the stone. His shoulder caught the edge of a blast, burning through skin and muscle. He groaned, biting down on the pain, but did not fall. She grabbed his arm, tears cutting through the dirt on her face. "You'll die here. Then I'll die standing," he said, voice ragged but unshaken. The circle tightened. The machines were nearly on top of them. She could hear their mechanical joints clanging, their bladed limbs slicing through the smoke. There was no way left to run, and then she saw something in the wreckage, a half-buried transmitter, its surface cracked, but its core still glowing faintly. It was old tech, damaged beyond use, but maybe, just maybe, it could send a burst signal. Her eyes widened with sudden hope. If she could reach it, maybe reinforcements would hear, but it was 10 steps away. 10 steps through open fire. He followed her gaze, saw the transmitter, and instantly knew what she was thinking. His jaw set. "Stay here." Before she could stop him, he rose to his feet. His silhouette cut through the fire and smoke, tall and unyielding. The machines all turned their weapons toward him, recognizing the greater threat. He moved like a man who had already accepted the cost, charging into the storm with nothing but a dying pistol and a shard of metal. The blasts lit up the ruins. Sparks flew from broken walls. His pistol barked until it clicked empty, but each shot found its mark, dropping machines one by one. When it failed, he hurled it aside and met the nearest machine with the jagged blade, slashing into joints and wires. Sparks showered his body as he fought them hand to hand, his roar carrying over the mechanical screams. She crawled toward the transmitter, dragging her wounded body across broken stone, every movement a battle of its own. Pain burned through her, but his voice echoed in her mind, "I don't leave people behind. Not you, not anyone." She reached the transmitter and slammed her hand against its broken surface. It flickered, weak, on the edge of death. She poured all her strength into it, sending a desperate signal out into the dark sky above, a signal of fire and fear, a signal of hope. Behind her, the human staggered, blood pouring from a wound on his side. The machine swarmed, circling him, blades raised high. He lifted his weapon one last time, face pale but eyes still burning. He stood unbroken, even in the jaws of death. And as the signal pulsed into the sky, carrying their last hope into the void, she realized something that froze her heart. He never expected rescue. He was only fighting to buy her those few extra breaths. The machines closed in. His roar shook the ruins, and the night trembled, as if the universe itself was deciding whether to let him fall or to answer. The night sky split apart at first. It was only a faint rumble lost beneath the roar of gunfire and the metallic shrieks of the machines. But then the ground shook, and a deep thunder rolled over the ruins, drowning out even the chaos of battle. Both she and the human froze for a heartbeat, their eyes lifting toward the heavens. The machines faltered too, their sensors flickering, their blades lowering as if even they sensed something greater had arrived. The signal had been answered. Through the smoke-filled sky, lights appeared sharp, blazing, cutting through the darkness. Like spears of fire, they descended fast, engines screaming, and the air rippled with heat. She saw them ships, human ships, armored and brutal, dropping from orbit in perfect formation. The machines turned their heads upward, their red eyes scanning, confusion flashing in their mechanical minds, and then the sky rained fire. The first barrage hit like a hammer from the gods. Beams of white-hot plasma tore into the machines, ripping their ranks apart. Explosions shook the ruins, fireballs lighting up the shattered city as metal bodies flew in every direction. The machines screamed in static, trying to retreat, but there was no escape. The human fleet had arrived, and it came with vengeance. She gasped, tears blinding her eyes. Her weak voice trembled. "You did it. You brought them." The human stood there, swaying on his feet, covered in blood and smoke. He looked ready to fall, but when the fire lit the sky, a faint smile touched his lips. His body sagged against the broken wall, the fight draining from him at last, but his spirit remained unbroken. He had bought enough time. Dropships screamed. Overhead, their doors opening midair, and soldiers in dark armor rained down on the battlefield. They landed hard, weapons blazing, moving with the precision of wolves. Gunfire cut through the remaining machines, sharp bursts echoing through the ruins. The invaders tried to rally, their red eyes glowing brighter, but it was useless. The humans had come. She reached for him, clutching his hand as soldiers surged past them, securing the ground. His skin was ice cold, his pulse weak, fear stabbed. Through her, "Stay with me, please. You can't leave me now." He blinked slowly, his lips parting, voice hoarse. "Told you, not leaving you behind." The last machine tried to break through, charging them with blades raised high. Before she could scream, a soldier intercepted, unloading a storm of bullets that tore it apart mid-stride. Its remains crashed at her feet, sparking and twitching, before finally going still. Silence fell, real silence, once alive, with screams and explosions, now echoed only with the crackle of fires and the steady stomp of boots. The human soldiers spread out, scanning for survivors, pulling her and him toward a dropship. She was half carried, half dragged, refusing to let go of his hand. Inside the dropship, medics rushed forward, tearing open kits, shouting orders. They worked fast, wrapping his wounds, injecting stimulants, fighting to drag him back from the edge. She sat beside him, trembling, refusing to move even as the ship lifted off the ground. Through the window, she saw the battlefield shrinking beneath them, machines burning, the sky lit by fire. The nightmare was ending, but her eyes stayed on him. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, but his fingers still clutched hers with what little strength remained. He had done the impossible. He had saved her when no one else would. The dropship broke through the clouds, joining the larger fleet in orbit. Dozens of warships hung in the sky, dark and silent, like watchful titans. Their guns glowed, ready to strike again if needed. Message was clear to anyone watching from below. Humanity had arrived. And no one touched their own, nor their allies, without paying the price. For the first time since the ambush, she allowed herself to breathe. The nightmare that had begun with fire and blood had ended with fire and salvation. But as she looked down at the human lying unconscious beside her, a new truth burned inside her heart. He hadn't just saved her life, he had changed it. He had shown her a strength she didn't know existed, a defiance that no machine, no army, no darkness could crush. She pressed his blood-stained hand to her chest, whispering a vow only he could hear. "You'll never fight alone again." While I breathe, far below, in the ashes of the ruined city, the machines lay broken and silent. Their war ended by one signal and one man who refused to let go.